Hey, so we're gonna make a stir-fried dish. Stir-fried is a Chinese cooking technique, and the dish we'll be making is stir-fried noodles with ginger, garlic, pork. And we're gonna make a dessert, so stay tuned. Let's go. First off, we're gonna marinate the meat. I'm using pork loin. I sliced them already. So we're gonna add in some cornstarch, baking soda, ginger, but before we put it in, let's get the juices out. Okay. Put that in. Next is light soy sauce, and then we have white pepper. So now we're gonna mix it up, make sure everything is coated nicely. If you're mixing it with your bare hands, please don't forget to wash your hands. So we'll let the meat marinate for a bit, and while we do so, we move on to the next step. So for our next step, we have egg noodles. This is basically 200 grams of egg noodles, dried egg noodles. So I'm gonna boil it quickly, like for 10 seconds in very hot water, and then take them out and then put it in ice water. So we're gonna heat up a pot with water. The water is starting to boil, so let's put in our noodles. So we're gonna mix it around a bit. So once it starts to soften, that's when we drain it out. After straining it, put it in ice water. So the reason why we do this is to stop the cooking process so it won't overcook the noodles. So after it's cooled down, let's strain it again. So we're done with our noodles, let's set it aside and let's move on to the next process. So we have our wok ready, so we're gonna heat it up. So I'm gonna add some sesame oil. Just a drizzle. We want to coat the wok with oil, so let's spread it out. Once the wok is hot, we add in our ginger. So we want to brown this for a bit before we add in our garlic. Wait for the aroma to come out before we put in garlic. Okay, now let's add in our garlic. Now we're gonna use our spring onions, but we're not gonna put everything yet. We're just gonna use the hard parts or the stem first. You want to lower the fire a bit if it's too hot. So I'm gonna add some carrots in as well. And we're gonna add our red bell pepper. Once that's done, we'll bring out our pork marinade we made earlier. So put it all in. sesame oil. So we're gonna put in our oyster sauce. And our dark soy sauce. Now we're gonna put water. We're doing this to deglaze the pan. So the sauce is starting to thicken up. I want it a little bit more thicker, so I'm going to use a cornstarch and water mixture. I'm just going to put a little because I don't want it too thick. There. Now we're going to add in some sugar. Now we're going to put our noodles. And our spring onions. Lastly, we're gonna put in some white wine. And we're done. So let's move on to the dessert. So we're gonna make Tanghulu as our dessert. Tanghulu is fruits that are coated in hard sugar syrup. So let's go. First up, we're gonna use apple as our fruit of choice. It's already cleaned, washed, and everything. So do that before you start everything. Clean your apple, clean any fruit you have. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put 2 cups of white sugar. And we're gonna put 1 cup of water. So we want to dissolve everything in it before we turn on the heat. Make sure everything's dissolved. Now we're gonna bring this up to a boil for high heat, around 10 to 15 minutes, depending. Keep an eye on it, and please don't stir it. So, tired. Just let it boil, don't touch it whatsoever, don't touch it. So if you wanna check if it's good, we have ice water here, so you just get a bit of this and then you dip it in the ice water. And if it's like, and if it hardens like glass and shatters like glass, that means it's ready. So this one is like glass when I put it in the cold water, so this is ready. So we're gonna let this sit for a bit. So while we wait, we have our apples. We'll just put a skewer in it like this. And for the next one, Usually they use strawberries, but what I'll be using is apple. You can use like nearly any fruit you want. So before we dip the apples in this syrup, we need to set aside a baking sheet with some wax paper or parchment paper. So what we're gonna do is we want to coat the apple. Coat it like this. Let it drip for a bit before you put it in the parchment paper or your wax paper. So as you can see, it's not dripping and it looks like glass. So you want to put this aside upwards like this. So let's move on to the next one. Doesn't it look like glass? Here comes the third one. Fourth one. And the last one. So we're gonna let it harden, and once it's hardened, you can remove the skewer or you can leave it like that as a decorative piece. So we're done. So let's see this paired with the dish we made earlier. Let's go.